Hey there, Centaurs. Here's another AutoCAD tutorial video. This time we're going to learn to work with absolute coordinates. So what are absolute coordinates? We've already learned about relative coordinates. Absolute coordinates are very similar, except that we are going to write them as a distance from the origin. The origin, of course, being where x and y are both 0. Just like relative coordinates, this is a pretty fast way to draw. The difference here is how we write them. So when we write our absolute coordinates, there's actually two ways that I'm going to teach you. For now, I'm going to say that we're going to write them with this number symbol in front of the coordinates. So an example would be the number symbol 5x, 5y would be a point 5 to the right and 5 up from the origin. So here's an important note. When we've been working in AutoCAD, we've been using the dynamic input until now. That's the little box that shows up by your cursor. The thing about using the dynamic input is that if you're using it, all your coordinates will default to relative. So you have two options here. The first option, well, actually out of order here, one option is to do what I've already said, is to always put the number symbol in front of your coordinate, and this will automatically make it absolute. For the exercise today, though, I'm going to recommend that you turn your dynamic input off, and I'll show that in the video here. We're going to type dyn mode, dyne mode, I suppose, and then type 0 to turn it off. So let's take a look at how the absolute coordinates work. We'll use this simple shape as an example. So I've already indicated the origin over here. This is 0 and 0. And I've marked out the first point. So here's our x, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and our y is 5. So same as we did the relative coordinates, that first point there is, of course, an absolute coordinate. Now, if we want to move to the right, if we want to move to this point, just like with relative, we can count the squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But in absolute coordinates, what we will do is we want to add the 9 to what the x-coordinate already was, because that will give us a distance from 0. So if we've increased in the x by 9, we must be at 13x, 9 plus 4, comma, and then the y-coordinate remains as 5. Moving upwards here, I'm going to count the boxes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have an increase of 7 in the y, meaning that our coordinate here will still be 13 in the x, and then 5 plus, what did I say there, 7? 5 plus 7 is going to be 12 in the y. Of course, if we're using dynamic input in AutoCAD, we would need to include the number symbol. Okay, counting to the left here, we've got 4 squares to bring us here. Remember that when we move to the left, this is x decreasing, so we're going to subtract 4 from our x coordinate, meaning that the 13 is going to subtract down to 9, and the y coordinate remains as 12. Moving downwards as well, 2 squares to here, the x has not changed, so it remains as 9, and the y coordinate, remember downwards is a negative move, will become 10. Okay, counting over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to here. So this is the x coordinate decreasing by 5. Or you may have noticed we're now lined up with this one down here. So I don't need to do the math. I know that that's an x coordinate of 4 and the y has remained as 10. Okay, and then I don't even need to mark my last coordinate, because I'm going to use the same 4, 5, but I'm going to put the number symbol in front of it. So to create this shape in AutoCAD, a good workflow would be just type L for line, press enter. We would type 4, 5, enter for our first point, and then follow that up with each of our absolute coordinates, always with the number symbol. 13, 5, 13, 12, 9, 12, 9, 10, 4, 10, and 4, 5. Okay, So let's scoot over into AutoCAD. Let's give this a try here. As we're starting to get comfortable with AutoCAD, let's remember to just set up our document a little bit. Double check that our usual 4 are turned on here, as well as units here. We're going to do this exercise in decimal units, so we can leave that as decimal. The one thing we are going to do is we're going to set up some layers, because we're going to ultimately put 3 different objects into this drawing. So they might actually overlap. So I'm going to create 3 new layers, and what I'm going to call them is just simply shape 1, shape 2, oops, not sure what happened there. Let's try that again. Shape 2, and shape 3. Let's get rid of this guy. Okay, and you can change the colors there. Go wild. Pick what feels right. Okay, so 3 different colors, and I'm ready to start drawing, so let's just slide the screen over so we can see. Alright, let's try it out. So we're going to type L for line, pressing enter. Our first starting point, 4, 5, and I can see right away I'm going to just need to scroll back with my scroll wheel. There we go. Okay, and now I'm just going to work my way around the outside. So my next coordinate, I'm going to put the number symbol, 13, 5. Okay, I do have the dynamic mode still on, so I need to use the number symbol. Moving to the next point, number 13, 12. Number 9, 12, number 9, 10, number 4, 10, and finally number 4, 5. So pretty easy. We'll press escape to exit the tool. Now I mentioned earlier that I would show how to turn the dynamic mode off, so why don't I show you that right now. See, when I go to do a line, that gray box next to the cursor, that's the dynamic input. To turn that off, in the command bar down here, we can just type DYN mode. You can see it's already auto-filled. That's what we want right there. And right now the value is 1. If you make it a value of 0 and press enter, now when I go to draw a line, no dynamic input. Okay? So let's go back into the OneNote. I have one more shape that I want to demonstrate for you. We'll scroll down here. For this one, the math might get a little trickier, so I've got my calculator ready just in case I need it. But just like with the other one, I'm going to do the math here on the drawing first. So in this case, this is going to be our starting point right here with a absolute coordinate of x7 and y5. And I'm going to move around the object in a counterclockwise direction, just like I did with the last one. So moving vertically to this point, we can see that y is increasing by the dimension that we have here, 2. So the coordinate for this next point is 7, 7. And I'm not going to put the number symbol now because I turned the dynamic input mode. Either way, whether it's on or off, you can put the number, and then you'll never make a mistake. Moving to the left here, we have to look to the dimension to see what's happening. In this case, x is changing by 2, and because it's moving to the left, it's decreasing. So this coordinate here would be 5, 7. Moving up to this point here, this one's a little trickier because both x and y are changing. Let's do the x first. So remembering that x is side to side, here's the change in x, 0.75. And it's increasing, it's moving to the right. So our first coordinate is going to be 5.75. This is why we're working with decimal for this exercise. We're going to put a comma. And then the y, you'll notice there is no y dimension. So we have to look elsewhere to figure out what the y is. So where I would look, if I look at this dimension here and this dimension here, it's pretty easy to figure out what we're missing. If this is 3 and 2, then our y increase is simply 1. So our previous coordinate being 7 is going to become 8. All right, moving to the left, over to this point here. Pretty easy one. The x is decreasing by 3.5. So 5.75, that's going to become 2.25. Boy, I almost had to bust out the calculator for that one. Not quite yet. The y coordinate remains the same, 8. And then moving down to here, again, we have a change in x and y. So x is increasing, in this case, by 0.75. So the x coordinate would be 2.25 plus 0.75. That's 3. Math works out pretty nicely there. The y is decreasing by this same amount that we calculated over here. So it was 8. Now the y value is 7. But also, if you look to the right, there's 2 other coordinates that are at the same height. So I could have just stolen my y coordinate from there. You don't always have to do the math. Okay, then we're coming around to this corner here. We have a change in x. And this one's a little tricky. We've got to look for the measurement here because it's not explicitly given. So how can we figure that out? So what we could say is we knew the x at this point, and we know that it's 6 from this point to over here. And because it lines up, again, it's going to be 6 less than our starting position. So this corner right here would be an x value of 1. That's 7 take away 6. The y value has remained unchanged at 7. Moving downward now, again, we don't see a measurement here, but it's the same as this guy, 2. So 1, 5. And we're nearing the end here. Moving to the right a little bit, how can we get this value? Well, again, if we started at 7 here and then move to the left, this would be a x of 6, and then 4 more, this must be 5, 5. Okay, moving upwards, we do have a dimension over here of 0.5, so this is going to be x5, y 5.5. I'm doing my best to write neatly on here. I hope that's working for you. And then the last point we need, moving to the right here, we're going to have an x of 6 and a y of 5.5. So before I start in AutoCAD, let's just clean the drawing up for you, because I'm sure some of you will be looking at the drawing as you're doing your AutoCAD portion. Okay, I think that's pretty good. All right, we're going to shrink this up a little bit. I think that's going to work. Okay, and so for this one, we're going to switch layers. Let's go to our layers and go to shape 2. Now, I actually made a little mistake. So I did my first object there on the 0 layer. Let me show you how to change that in case you make the same mistake. So I'm currently on the 0 layer. If I pull this open a little bit, you're going to see some more. So currently I'm on the 0 layer here. If I select everything, and with it selected, just simply shift over to shape 1 here, everything is now on shape 1. And I can prove that to be true by simply turning off the visibility of the 0 layer, and everything still remains. Everything's on shape 1 here. So now I'm going to toggle to shape 2, but I don't want to be drawing over top of what I've already made. So shape 1, I'd like to turn the visibility off, see how it disappears, and I'm ready to draw, making sure I'm on shape 2 layer. Okay, we'll make a little bit more room, and let's start. So beginning by typing L for line, enter, and our starting point here is 7, 5. And because I have the dynamic input turned off, I don't need to use the number symbol. So let's just go around. My next point was 7, 7, and then 5, 7, and then 5.75, 8. There's the angled line. We can maybe zoom in a little bit now that we see the scale a little bit better. Moving to the left was 2.25, 8. Then 3, 7, 1, 7, 1, 5, 5, 5. Ooh, I think I made a little mistake there, didn't I? So let's get rid of that line, and let's go over to the OneNote. Let's see, what did I do here? So this x coordinate is not correct. Ooh, my math was a little bit off here. Remember, our starting point was 7, and we're moving 5 this way, so that must be a 2. Oops. This one as well. So 2, 5, and 2, 5.5. So going back to my AutoCAD drawing, I can just start my line, and if I have my object snaps turned on, I should be able to just snap to the end of the previous and then just continue. So 2, 5, 2, 5.5, 6, 5.5, and oh, we're actually missing one in the notebook here, but I know what it is. It's going to be 6, 5. 6, 5. And back to my starting position of 7, 5. So there we have it. There's our completed shape, and as you can tell, going through the drawing and writing down the coordinates is the part that's a little more difficult than the actual entering into AutoCAD. Once you've got your coordinates, it's pretty easy. Okay, so how are you going to finish your assignment after you've done this video following along with me? You're going to switch to your Shape 3 layer, and then with your newfound knowledge, you're going to complete the shape a little further down in the notebook here. Oops, I lost you. There we go. You're going to complete this shape right here. So here's your starting point, x45, y130, and as you work your way around from this point to here, you're going to have to do the math a little bit. So let me give you the first two. So if we're starting at 45 in the x and we increase by 20, this is going to be 65 in the x, and the y stays the same. Moving vertically here, if the y increases by 10, this is going to be 65, 140. So I would encourage you to write these coordinates in the notebook first, and then draw it on your third layer there, Shape 3. When you're completed, you're going to attach your file, which you've saved in the A drive. By the way, save the file as absolute coordinates with your name, and attach it to your team's assignment and hand it in. Well done.